Our plan is that by the time we move to our countries, we shall have concluded this exercise, and it will give us a very good footing when it comes to deliberations in our committee. All members, I don't want to talk so much about UNEB, they will talk about themselves. But I'm happy that we have members here, all members who have knowledge and experience about what UNEB does. Like our Honorable from Ururi. He declared his interest indirectly, and Honorable was him, our elder. But it's very important that when you have such a team who know you better, then you're able to work with us. Now, UNEB, I would like to bring to your attention that sometimes when we meet with us at Parliament, when I say my brother Idi Odong, when you are in our committee meetings there at Parliament, sometimes you wonder what is going to come from our side. I'd like to assure you and comfort you that Parliament is your home. This committee is yours.
During this financial year, the board had a budgetary cut of 41%. And this translates into 55 billion shillings. If this cut is maintained, UNEB will not be able to conduct examinations for the year 2021. I would therefore appeal to the committee to support UNEB in having that cut reviewed.
Using social media. This is another big challenge. If these people cut and they have a few minutes before the start of the exams, they try to transmit to particular centers, and this one poses a big problem.
Have supervision challenges. I still think that we need transparent tests to the invigilators, like at the local level, their district, also invigilators and scouts.
But the kind of society we have now, we have cases of where we know that the scout is bribed or intimidated. The invigilators are also bribed or intimidated. These are cases that have been documented, and arrests have been made, but the way the justice system works, it is sometimes very, very frustrating. But we have to deal with that. So we have some mitigation measures that we have put in place, including if everything else fails, results are cancelled. I'm happy, Chair and members, that the act that you passed now will give some clout, because the sentences, the penalties are quite deterrent. And as soon as conditions allow, Chair and members, we plan to have a wide sensitization of our stakeholders on the implications of this law. The other challenge, Chair, is the inadequate office space. We have the property here where we are. We also have offices across the valley at Ntinda, where I'm sure many members either know or may have been to. However, those are still not enough. We are still sharing offices, even among senior members of staff. But we are seeing that this problem may be partly solved or addressed when the construction of this building just out here, when it is done. We also have a challenge of low ICT skills among our major stakeholders, and this affects our efficient use of our programs like online registration and so on and so forth. Many schools still do not have adequate computers. In some places, the internet connectivity is not very good and online registration is affected. As a mitigation measure, we have been carrying out short training sessions for all our head teachers and those involved. The other challenge, Chair and members, is candidates with special education needs. Because of the sensitization that UNEB has been carrying out, more and more of these learners are being identified with various forms of disabilities, and they require additional resources. For example, if you have a deaf candidate, each candidate must be given a sign language interpreter during the examination period. You have a physically disabled child or a candidate, that child must be given a support person who works with him or her throughout the examination period. The blind, we have to provide for them the braille. In other words, we have these assistive devices and specialized personnel that we must employ. So as we have more and more of these candidates, the costs of administering exams for the special education needs candidates is going high. Then, Chair, the pandemic, this has disrupted a lot of our activities and temporarily has changed our examination period. Some of the equipment that we had already ordered, for which you had given us money, for example, you had given us money for automatic counting and wrapping machine. This was, the tender was won by an Indian company, I think, but for a long time, India was a no-go area. And others which we have not yet been able to take delivery of because of the pandemic. Chair, the desired interventions from government through this committee, we are requesting for development funding for our infrastructure development plan. We are requesting for funding to replace our aging printing machines, which you have seen. We are also appealing that the budget cuts that have been imposed should be reversed. We are also appealing that the supplementary funding that we had under COVID-19 should be maintained, because we expect that the conditions will be more or less the same as was the time we conducted this last examination. And then funding for national assessment of progress in education. Chair, this has remained an unfunded priority for a long time, despite the very useful role that this program has been playing.
We had a proposal of continuous assessment which should have been contributing 20% to the primary leaving examination. That's the cumulative assessment records were issued to schools, but to date, you are still marking out over 100%. What is UNEB doing to that? Because it is this kind of examination which has contributed to unfair competition. Schools fight for grades, and therefore I will request that we work along that, because if the 20% assessment is cumulative, I think it will give a fair balance across the country. Secondly, Chair, I want to find out how accessible the UNEB question banks are, because we have all sorts of business people supplying, selling papers, and what have not professionals doing it.
I want to appreciate that you have taken measures to really limit the cheating of these exams. However, there are still some of these malpractices that are there.
The processing of the release and the release of the results, Chair and members, maybe by the time some of the members were marking, they would observe that after they have finished marking, these marks were recorded manually onto what we used to call mark sheets. However, using IT, we have gone out of that manual process. We are now fully computerized, where the marks are directly captured into the computers from the scripts. We make printouts and we check the accuracy of the mark data capture. Then another group will check the printouts against the original scripts, so that if there is an error made by a marker or examiner, that error is corrected before the data is entered.
If there was a supplementary because of budget cuts, this is not the way we should be operating. We should be budgeting for them, and we ensure that we get the necessary fundings that we require. Chair and members of the committee, I am a researcher, and we depend so much on information. I'm surprised that the NAPE, the National Assessment of Progress in Education, NAPE reports were suspended and remain unfunded. And this is, as researchers, we normally rely on these reports for making decisions, for making standards in education. When you're writing a report, you refer to these reports. So I'm requesting the committee to kindly support UNEB on this one. And I do not know, and I want information from UNEB, who is stopping this? Who is responsible that we can convince